Good evening. Tonight's presentation is a review of literature focusing on why culturally responsive teaching is a necessary part of teacher education curriculums, and the best practices for preparing pre-service teachers to be culturally responsive practitioners. This review incorporates the views presented in 3 articles dedicated to preparing culturally responsive teachers, authored by Geneva Gay, Ana Maria Villegas and Tamara Lucas, and Anne Marie Ryan. To begin, the definition of culturally responsive teaching remained fairly consistent across all 3 articles, with only minor variations in vocabulary. Gay's 2002 article defined it succinctly as using the cultural characteristics, experiences, and perspectives of ethnically diverse students as conduits for teaching them more effectively. Further descriptions attributed culturally responsive teaching with consistent efforts to empower students intellectually, socially, emotionally, and politically, as well as treating them as competent learners and providing appropriate instructional scaffolding. All of these studies center their purpose around the concept that the academic success of ethnically diverse students can be improved through the adoption of culturally responsive teaching techniques. There are a number of factors driving the need to focus on preparing culturally relevant educators. Evidence has repeatedly shown that students' ethnic, racial, and socioeconomic background influences their behavior, learning style, and academic performance. And while the growing diversity in U.S. society is a defining element in our country, its significance in our educational system has been minimized. While there is a focus on addressing and reducing achievement gaps, there remains a lack of consensus on the necessity of cultural preparation for teachers. Efforts to incorporate cultural diversity education in teacher preparation programs has been tentative. Training options are limited, and it remains possible to complete a teacher education program without any cultural diversity training. Diversity training in education is often mentioned, but is yet to be fully developed as a fully developed element of the curriculum. Meanwhile, across the U.S., there is a Eurocentric focus in education that is increasingly inappropriate for the wide range of culturally, ethnically, and racially diverse students that our educators serve. As a result of this, diverse communities are more and more frequently voicing their objections to their children being forced to conform to Eurocentric norms in order to succeed academically. To put the situation in better perspective, 1 out of every 3 students in U.S. elementary through secondary schools is of a racial, ethnic, or minority background, and the number of students from diverse backgrounds is expected to continue to increase. Despite the increase in student diversity, the majority of students entering teacher education programs are Caucasian, representing 78% of enrollments in 2001. This disproportional ratio makes it imperative that teachers are prepared to successfully teach the increasing numbers of diverse students in their classroom. In an effort to solidify the goals of a successfully culturally responsive training program, the authors present the following suggestions for teacher education curriculum. The development of an extensive knowledge base about cultural diversity, which is necessary in order to gain a deeper understanding of their students. Cultivating the ability to communicate effectively with diverse student populations. And ensuring that pre-service teachers have affirming views of students from diverse backgrounds, maintain high expectations, and consistently provide challenging academic experiences while providing appropriate scaffolding. They must also ensure that pre-service teachers understand the importance of knowing about the lives of their students, both in and out of school, in order to be prepared to understand behaviors and situate lessons in a way that is accessible and engaging, and in order to support the knowledge construction process by bridging students' existing knowledge with new academic material. They must also encourage them to include community members, such as their students' family members, and their expertise in the education process. The authors also describe the necessity for the development of a socio-cultural consciousness regarding how the stratified U.S. society is divided and how those divisions influence social inequalities, and how the educational system plays a role in reproducing and legitimating these inequalities. In addition, they must nurture the ability of teachers to see themselves as responsible for and capable for bringing about change to make schools more equitable. While there were many similarities across the articles, there were a few notable differences. Villegas and Lucas emphasized the need for pre-service teachers to have exposure to experienced, culturally responsive practitioners, both in the classroom and for mentor feedback, in order to be able to model culturally responsive behaviors. Gay focused on the strong need for including ethnic and diversity content in pre-service teacher curriculum in order to form the foundation for all other required understandings. Ryan, however, proposed a need for a base in social foundations courses and self-awareness, the promotion of student citizenship, political access, and understanding the strong need for teachers to have both extensive knowledge of their subject and pedagogy due to the need to be able to have a strong enough background in each to be able to successfully support and incorporate the culturally responsive teaching techniques prescribed. Throughout the literature reviewed, the concept, definition, and need for culturally responsive teaching remained fairly consistent. All asserted that culturally relevant teaching can improve diverse student achievement through similar applications of culturally responsive teaching techniques. The data and references provided support the author's positions and value in this line of research. What none of the articles specifically address is the administrative and bureaucratic barriers inherent in teachers' implementation of the more curriculum-based modifications suggested. While there are options for modification of material presentation methods and for pedagogical preferences, there are still prescribed curriculum guidelines in most educational systems that must be adhered to. Additionally, time constraints limit teachers' ability to supplement course material to any great extent. Areas for further research in this field include exploring possible ways to educate teacher candidates to not only recognize the inequities that persist in the U.S. educational system, and to view themselves as agents of change, but to also provide guidance surrounding strategies that they can effectively utilize in order to act upon these understandings. There appears to be a need for teacher education regarding ways in which they can best influence the schools and communities in which they work. Further instruction based upon the reasons and politics behind existing policies, as well as the roles and responsibilities of school administrators, could provide a basis upon which to better forward teachers' school reform agendas. Ryan also incorporates an element of socioeconomic diversity as a factor affecting students. In addition to the influence of ethnic and racial diversity have on socialization and learning, it has also been shown that socioeconomic class is a powerful influence in educational achievement. Reardon asserts that the income-based achievement gap in education is now nearly twice as large as the black-white achievement gap, which suggests there is a need to more fully incorporate this sociological influence into teacher preparation programs. Ryan mentions it as a factor, but does not delve into the nature of the effects of this element have on learning or academic outcomes. The other articles did not touch on this element of classroom diversity specifically, thus presenting an opportunity for further research. Additionally, despite the evidence presented to support the position that teaching using culturally responsive methods can improve diverse student achievement, there is a lack of statistical analysis evaluating the various methods presented for preparing future educators to utilize culturally responsive teaching techniques. Further research into which educational paths produce the most effective teachers would be of benefit in guiding pre-service teacher curriculum development and implementation. I hope you enjoyed tonight's presentation, and should you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me at ewilsony@buffalo.edu.